Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The tragic toll of yesterday's storm in the Tatra Mountains became clear today. 5 people died from lightning strikes, 4 on the Polish and 1 on the Slovak side of the border. More than 150 people were injured and 2 people are still missing. Nearly 50 people are receiving treatment in the hospitals in the area. 3 days of mourning this weekend has been ordered by the local authorities.
This was the most comprehensive rescue operation in the Tatra Mountains in decades. The Polish Highlands Weekly reports on it in detail. Firefighters and mountain rescue teams from other areas were called immediately to help. The Zakopane hospital triaged in just a few hours a similar number of patients as they would in 24 hours during a busy day in high season.
There were heavy burns caused by electrical shock, fractures of lower and upper limbs, rib cage injuries, head injuries, including serious head injuries, and also smaller cuts requiring surgical intervention.
Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki was shaken by the size of the tragedy. He arrived at the crisis headquarters late last night to survey the progress of the rescue operation. Unfortunately, the mountains and the weather, as the experienced hikers know, are unpredictable. The sudden change in the weather was not in the forecast. This is how the hike down from Giewont looked like during the tail end of the storm. This is the mountain where the worst tragedy took place. The lightning struck a group of hikers. At least one hit the metal chain people hold on along the hiking trail. It is estimated that about 30 people were gripping it when the lightning struck. The author of this video made a warning comment that during storm you always stare downhill. In connection with the tragedy, the local authorities declared 3 days of mourning.
Today marks the 80th anniversary of the signing in Moscow of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The German Soviet Agreement, officially a non-aggression pact, included a secret protocol which provided for the two countries to attack Poland and divide it between them. On the basis of the pact, other Baltic states fell victim to Soviet aggression and the Soviet Union took a large part of Romania. Today, on the European Day of Remembrance for victims of Stalinism and Nazism, the foreign ministers of Poland, Romania, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia gave a shared statement.
Remembering and commemorating past tragedies gives us strength and knowledge to stand against those who try to resurrect or remove from these ideologies the crimes and guilt that they are responsible for. We appeal to all the European countries to provide both moral and material support for the historical research on totalitarian regimes. Working together, we can more efficiently take on disinformation campaigns and attempts to manipulate historical facts. We need to stand united against totalitarianism.
Today, Krzysztof Szczerski, the head of the President's office, had been expected to present the detailed plans for United States President Donald Trump's visit to Poland on the 80th anniversary of the outbreak of the Second World War. The press conference was cancelled because of Minister Szczerski's engagement in preparations for the visit. According to unofficial information, the visit by the United States President may be shorter than expected because of logistical difficulties related to transporting the President to an American base outside Warsaw. According to an opinion poll conducted by Kantar for television stations TVN and TVN24, the lead of the governing Law and Justice Party over the Civic Coalition opposition is decreasing. Another opinion poll prepared by Social Changes for the W Polityka PL website gave the Law and Justice Party a lead of 12% over the opposition.
If the Polish parliamentary elections were held today, the Law and Justice Party would definitely win, receiving 42.9% of the votes. The Civic Coalition, which includes, among others, Civic Platform, the Green Party and the Modern Party, would get 30.8% of support. In third place would be the Left Together Party on 13.4% of the votes. 8.4% of the voters would support the Polish People's Party and the Kukiz 15 movement.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programs. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
I'm Aleksandra Zarzycka and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tonight. Clear and cloudless sky in large parts of the country. Some rain is expected on the southeast. The temperature will range from 10 to 14 degrees around the Baltic coast and in Kraków. And now over to tomorrow. Sunny weather across the country. Western Poland will see the highest temperatures, 24 degrees. A minimum will be 21 degrees on the east. The warm weather will continue in the following 3 days. Sunday will be very scorching day. Temperature will hover around 27 and 28 degrees. Thunderstorms will appear on the south. On Monday, the sun is expected across Poland. On Friday, stormy weather will come back. More sunlight on the northeast and in central Poland. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Poland Daily Business Edition, and in our show tonight is Jakub Wiech of Energetyka24.com. So welcome to the show. Let us talk a little bit about Polish-Russian relationships, especially in spite of the 80th anniversary of the outbreak of the Second World War. Vladimir Putin will not be invited to the event which Poland will host, for example, President Donald Trump of the United States of America. And yet we also have another anniversary, that is 80th anniversary of Pact Hitler-Stalin of Ribbentrop-Molotov, with secret chapters covering the orchestrated attack of Soviet Union, Nazi Germany on Poland in September 1939. And this is a political question today?
Well, this is a political question for Russians. So we have to first acknowledge that the Russian propaganda is focused on rewriting the history of the Second World War. They want to create a different image of the happenings from the period before the war and during the war. They want to, let's say, blunt the Russian responsibility for the war. They want to create a perception that the West forced Russians to attack Poland in September 1939, to create an alliance with Hitler and the Third Reich. They want to possibly create the image of the Soviet Russia as the victim of the policy of the Western countries towards Hitler, of the policy of appeasement.
This all boils down to the Russia relationships with the Central European countries, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, and so on and so on. The countries that were affected by the Second World War probably the most. And we see each other as countries that are between two big powers, and then this uniting movement started a couple of years ago. We have a Three Seas initiative, we have a cooperation with European Union, we have cooperation with the United States, and obviously this is kind of against the projects that are right now in Kremlin to build Europe that starts in Lisbon, ends in Vladivostok, and surprisingly Russians have the upper hand on it.
Yeah, actually when we look on the map of the Europe, we see some very significant division. Division that shows that there are countries in Europe that have actually now the time to show the green light towards Russia, to invite Russians again after the annexation of Crimea to the European policy system. And we have countries like Poland, like the Baltic states, that are against it, that are clearly on the side of respecting the international law, of showing to the Moscow that we do not agree on the happenings that took place in Crimea and the eastern Ukraine and so on. And now we see that the Russian propaganda is focused on actually aggregating the forces of the countries that are not keen on welcoming Russia again in the European policy. For example, we can see that rewriting the history of Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact by the Russians is focused on aggregating the forces of Poland, of the Polish journalists, expert politicians, and showing by this manner that the Poles are so anti-Russian that it may actually that their attitude may be imposed into other spheres, not only history, but also politics and so on and so on. That they need to create some image of Poles that they want us to look like anti-Russian maniacs, I would say. And this is the possible outcome of their propaganda. The propaganda focused on rewriting the history of the Second World War.
So first offend the guy and then tell, look how crazy he behaves.
Yes, especially it may be very successful because of the lack of knowledge on the West regarding the history of the Second World War and the history of Poland at all.
Okay, so we will see how it's gonna do. The general weapon that Russia is using right now are not tanks and rockets, but rather the gas and energy resources, which obviously the main primary market is Western Europe. So this all is this all propaganda is directed toward the Western Europe, Germany, France, Italy.
Yeah, actually the natural resources that Russia possesses are well, the way to make some agreements with the West. For example, we can see that Nord Stream 2 project is actually not only the way to transfer gas from Russia to Europe, it's also the platform to communicate between Russia, between Germany and other countries involved in that operation via their energy companies. So we can see that for Russia, gas, oil, and so on may be a useful platform for making some policies.
And we see the same division. We see Russia and Germany against Poland, and say the countries that are down into the interior.
Yeah, it was actually Radosław Sikorski who compared the Nord Stream project to Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact.
Back then, when he was Law and Justice constitutional minister. Right now, Mr. Sikorski and his wife, Anne Applebaum, are very harsh critics of the ruling party. Times is changing, but some things are stable. Jakub Wiech of Energetyka24, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For participating in this show. And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. Sunny weather across the country. Western Poland will see the highest temperature, 24 degrees. The minimum on the east will be 21 degrees. Let's take a look at the forecast for our continent. On the south of Europe, temperature will rise. The highest temperature we will see in Athens and in Madrid, 35 degrees. Warmer in Scandinavia, and their temperature will range from 16 to 20 degrees. In Central Europe, a lot of sunlight will appear and higher temperatures as well. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and this is Poland Daily Culture. Today we are going to talk about the most expensive Polish film production after City 44, the movie called The Legions. It is the first fiction film about Polish legions formed during World War I. We have in studio with us Maciej Pawlicki.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
But it is hard to talk about the film without watching it. So let's see a trailer.
Фамилия?
Król.
Место рождения?
Polska.
Нет такого места.
A kim wy jesteście?
Myślałem, że nigdy nie podejdziesz.
To co, źle zrobiłam?
Garstka dzieciaków naprzeciwko 3 imperiów.
Trzeba trochę naprawić ten świat.
A zostaniesz moją żoną?
Kochasz go? Po co tu jesteście?
Jestem.
Baczność! Jedynym waszym znakiem jest odtąd orzeł biały.
Tylko że polskiego wojska nie ma. Nigdy nie będzie.
Chodź ze mną. Zobaczysz polskie wojsko. Naprzód! Polskie! Łany!
The highlights of the movie The Legions are huge battle scenes. You used 123 actors, few hundred extras, but also many restorers, more than 5,000 people working on historical realities, so it looks real. How did you prepare the landscapes and how did you prepare those battles? So the viewers are persuaded that it's real and true and not made by the computer only.
No, it's not by a computer. Everything was real. I mean, almost everything. And the idea was to show exactly, to find the places very similar to the original ones. For instance, Battle of Kostiuchnówka, we were shooting in Kierzbuń near Mrągowo, but the landscape is like similar to where Kostiuchnówka and the so-called Polish mountain was in Wołyń, where it took place. So, but we had to change it, to build a huge fortifications, because World War I, they were sitting in fortifications for months and years. So then we had I think 6 cannons, and some of them were original ones, 100 years old or even older, and shooting ones. So we had a lot of weapons, a lot of explosive. We had to dig funnels. We had to change the landscape totally to make it look real after the month or so of shooting, of bombing. When we were shooting Rokitna, we had to have a small river. It was Liwiec River near Jarnica, near Siedlce. And we had also to have a mountain, because at the end of the battle, when they crossed the 4 lines of fortifications, the 2 of them, 2 Uhlans, as it was in reality, they ride to the top of the mountain and raise their weapons to show that it was actually a victory. But there were a lot of also preparations for the horses, because the horses, 64 horses, were galloping through explosive and jumping over the fortifications. I was myself twice in that cavalry, so I can imagine how what they felt during that
time. And because we're talking about Polish legions and the bravery of the soldiers, but every single soldier actually, it was a person, but also a horse who needed to be a soldier himself.
Yes, of course.
And as I've heard, none of the horses which you used
Absolutely.
didn't die or get
Absolutely.
injured.
None of the horse was injured, because we respected all the rules, and the horses were too precious, and they're the very loved ones also by stunt.
Because I understand they have to be specially trained to survive and not to flee.
Yes, many of them had to be used to explosions around them, and to jump big fortifications and over them, over the fences, and they had to also to fall, because in the old times, when there are films like Pan Wołodyjowski or maybe even Potop, I don't know, were being done, there was such a method that in order to make a horse fall, they were the strings were attached to his front knees, and then the horsemen were pulling them, and the horse was falling, but it
could be dangerous.
It was. In most cases, it did work, but sometimes it did happen.
And if a horse break a leg,
yes,
it's over. I mean, it's no reparation.
It goes for food.
Exactly.
To friends. But it was some time ago. But we had even had that offer to do it, because, for instance, in Ukraine you can still do it.
I see.
And
so
in some films
after
they do
the battle was in fact in Ukraine, those times. I mean, those times.
That's what I've heard. I'm not sure, but that's what I heard, that we can do it across the border. But we had these trained horses, and all these horribly looking fallings of horses are just like kind of a dance, very well trained by the horse and by it's the stuntmen, the horsemen who are really did a great job. I think it was
But it
amazing.
needed to be also a huge challenge for the actors, not only to play the scenes which are the plot scenes, but also to take part in the battles. How did you prepare them?
Well, we had a training camp, a week of training camp before we started shooting. And some of the young actors didn't like what they had to do at that camp, but Bartek Gelner, for me, it was like a big surprise, because when we chose him for the part, and then we found out that he actually doesn't ride horses, not at all. So
and it's difficult. I myself, I'm a horse rider, so I know it takes a lot of time.
You know,
to...
it took him 2 or 3 weeks.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. He's such a natural, and he does it so well now. During the battle, he feels on the horse now like he would be born on the horse.
That's amazing, because I mean, when you're galloping and when you have to jump,
yes,
I'm praying to Mary the Virgin that we've survived this, and it's fine, because it's really scary, and
especially when they're explosive around you.
Absolutely.
And the horses, some of the horses are afraid of it, and they change the course suddenly. So
yeah, because horses are unpredictable creatures. They can be afraid of a puddle and then suddenly of a wind or or another horse or a collar. That's why the obstacles are usually painted.
But these horses are the stars.
The stars, really, extremely brave ones.
Stars, yes, really.
Maybe there will be a special pricing for horses, for animals.
That's exactly.
And that's why it should go.
Let's propose it, because...
or for a special actor, and then you can bring a horse.
Well, I don't know if there is a prize for stunts, because we had really great stunts in the movie, so I think they deserve to be awarded somehow. But anyway, so we had these... of course, battle scenes were difficult, but also we had to struggle with the weather sometimes, because our idea was to show, since the story lasts 2 years, so we wanted to show it in a different seasons, and also in different parts, in different locations, different landscapes. So it was really difficult. We had Sebastian Fabiański meeting a real wolf in the very winter circumstances. I think it was -15.
How did you get the wolf then? Wolf was trained as well?
Yes, and there is only one wolf in Europe, Film Wolf. He's Hungarian, really. We had to bring Hungarian wolf because in Poland there is a wolf dog, something like wolf dog, and we didn't want some mixture between wolf and dog, and we wanted to have a real wolf. And they were even giving him orders, Gera, in Hungarian.
Hungarian.
Yes.
So you have actors, horse actors, wolf actors, any other animals, any other creatures?
Well,
parrots maybe, or
no parrots, no parrots. But anyway, it was, as I'm telling you, how real it was, that Sebastian was facing a real wolf in -15 in the winter, in the night. So.
So you demanded a lot from your actors.
Exactly.
So whenever it's another audition for another movie, as you're saying to say, actors need to think it through if they want to participate.
I think they will be happy when they see the result. It was actually, the wolf was Darek Gajewski, the director. It was his idea, and also it was his idea to have different landscapes and different seasons to that extent, because I would have agreed, but to that extent, that was Darek's idea, as he was a director, and for a producer is somehow painful, because it costs the costs are
bigger.
And of course the easiest thing is to do, of course, the film in one location, one season, but we wanted to have a best possible effect, and we decided to invest in that, and I think the result is really worth
seeing. We hope it is worth seeing, and I'm very excited myself. I'm waiting to see it in the movie theater, and I hope The viewers of Poland Daily Culture also will be excited to see the Polish legions in September, and especially focusing on the battle scenes, having in mind how hard those actors needed to work to perform like this.
I'm here today in the Saxon Gardens at the heart of Warsaw. Since 1727, a public garden, one of the first in Europe. But it started life as something more, the garden of a palace built by the first Saxon king of Poland, Augustus II. A member of the Wettin dynasty from Saxony became kings of Poland. Why were they here? What were they doing? Why did they build this palace? And what is more, what is the Saxon Axis? An exercise in urban planning. Join me in Poland Daily History today when we find out more. Peter, here we are at what would have been, or the western end of the park on the axis. And if we could imagine, we have the gates here, then this rather magnificent grand salon, and then we'll go all the way down through the park to the palace that we saw earlier. Marvellous, again, I think this marvellous axis. And of course, then I think the original architectural concept was that the axis will continue beyond the gates of the park and then through into the western part of Warsaw.
Yeah, so the original idea was that to have the axis, which was beginning actually even, if we talk about the landscape reason, even on a Praga side, right, in the area of the place of the field where actually August II was elected as a king. So right, it was so also very
a personal reason, this sort of progress.
And to go to Wola, to another election field on the other side. So it was kind of an axis between the two election right, fields. Yes. But the core of the whole axis was, of course, the palace and the garden, and that was the main gate to the garden, so-called Iron Gate, from the western side. So you can see even the two symbols on both sides.
As we look at it on the left-hand side, we have the symbols of Poland, the coats of arms of Poland and Lithuania, and on the right-hand side we have the Wettin family coat of arms.
Yes, so that was the symbolics of the Wettins, of course, which became the kings of Poland as the kings of electors of Saxony and the kings of Poland and Lithuania. So that was the symbolic entrance to the royal park and the royal garden, as exactly on the axis of the main purpose of the palace. The iron part, as you can see, was only the part of the doors on both sides, two gates, yeah, but you had this architectural beautiful context with all those coats of arms.
And of course, and then behind this marvelous building, the Grand Salon.
The Grand Salon, which is interesting, actually the Grand Salon was even higher, or like make the impression of the bigger building than the palace itself, than the Baroque palace. So that was very, very interesting. That was really high structure. and it was made here in the garden as a one of the most, actually a part of the palace, the most important building in the garden, which was to spend time to dance. Also the dancings were held in here, the different royal parties in the times of Stanisław August Poniatowski, so the last king of Poland. Actually, even the fireworks shows were held in exactly here, so they could even open the roof of the saloon to make the space for the fireworks going up. Yeah, so that was kind of a party place of Warsaw.
You get some
well.
of the sense of, and they look at the picture of Canaletto behind there, and you can see the salon and the iron gates, and you get some sense of the domination which the salon had over the park, because we can see the salon, but it's tall, and we therefore can't see really very much of the palace, the original Saxon palace behind it. So you're right in the fact it really does dominate the landscape.
Exactly. So it dominates the landscape, and it was designed also by the best architects of August II. Yeah, so mainly the Poppelman, who was actually the main architect of the Zwinger in Dresden. You know, so one of the best Baroque, late Baroque, early Rococo architects.
Augustus II goes down, of course, as one of the great architects or architectural designers, obviously particularly in Dresden, his sort of home capital, if you like, and obviously his concepts here in Warsaw. I mean, it's marvellous that in those days, of course, they probably spent more time thinking about art and building than they did about being king.
And Poppelman was actually one of the best masters of 18th century architecture, who can connect and join together the marvelous monumental building, which at the same time was also kind of an Altan, you know, like kind of that you can go or kind of like a summer house, like open with the air going through, with a blowing wind going through. So with those oculus on the top and huge arches, so it was an open structure, but at the same time very monumental. So in the summer period you can dance there, and it was connected with a park. But in the winter period, that could also close those huge arches and make the inner ballroom inside. Yeah, so that was also the not only like great architecture if we talk about those atticas, vases, and late Baroque
I think
motifs, but also again very useful and well prepared for those parties.
But this is the thing, is when you look at the sort of what I would call classical architecture, in the sense of architects around that time, they created buildings which were obviously aesthetically immensely beautiful, but also very practical as well. I mean, something you would sometimes wonder if modern architects have sort of lost the idea of combining beauty and practicality. But I mean, this is, when you look at it, wherever you would see this is just a lovely building. And unfortunately, it didn't survive the 19th century, and we can't blame any occupying forces for it, can we? It was demolished in 1817?
Yeah, so actually that was the Poles which dismantled the building. So after 1815, when the Polish kingdom, this kind of partially independent kingdom, which was of course dependent at some point with to the Russian Empire, but that was this partially independent Polish state, which started to reshape all the garden around actually, and they had a new gardener after 1815, and they turned the whole Baroque garden into the landscape garden, and they dismantled a lot of buildings from the Saxon period. Right. Even some part of the stables, barracks, and also the Grand Salon, which, by the way, wasn't in a good shape already in early 19th century. And their idea was also to open the access completely. Right. Yeah. So because, as we can see on Canaletto, it was dominating the horizon. They wanted to dismantle it to make better landscape and better view, which was ending at the main garden facade of the palace. Yeah. So and it wasn't anymore the royal garden. So the royal parties and those fireworks were not anymore held in this huge structure, actually. So it wasn't used like it used to be before. Yeah. And with this demolition, also they
4 years later they took the gates away.
Yeah, they took the gate away as well. And after this, actually, it became really the Iron Gate. Yeah, because after this, it was made only of iron. Yeah, and together with a cast iron fence, which was actually a circling hole, closing whole area of the.
It'd be hard to imagine you would actually want to replace something as beautiful as that with cast iron, no matter how beautiful, isn't quite as lovely. But of course, I suppose with these two sets of royal symbols, that probably also didn't go down well with the new Russian masters.
That's true. Probably it was possible also just to change the coat of arms, but just the fashion also changed, and sometimes it's just simple like these, and the idea of the whole garden also changing into the landscape garden. So I think this was the most important actually with recreating or reshaping this part of the garden, which actually nowadays stands already behind the Marszałkowska Street.
Yes, yeah? One of the main streets of Warsaw going north-south in this particular point.
Yeah. So actually, which is something that we not often think.
But for those, modern Marszałkowska does follow the sort of curves of Marszałkowska do follow the original boundary of the parkland, which is quite interesting.
The Great Saloon was actually standing just next to the nowadays rails of the tram.
Of the trams, yes, exactly.
So it used to be the main. The situation of the Grand Saloon, then they dismantle it, and then, of course, in the 20th century, just before the war and during the occupation, they made the space for Marszałkowska, who actually cut the original layout of the garden.
Welcome to Poland Daily Travel and our second installment of A Touch of Paradise near Warsaw. That's right, the Campinos National Park. If you like paradise near the big city, this is your place. Our ranger guide, Katarzyna Mikrut, makes us feel at home in the park. We'll be finding out some more about the wildlife. We'll take a trip to the cemetery at Palmyra. And we'll take a look at the different kind of ecosystems. Nearly 40,000 hectares of forest. It's a big park, and it's a lot of fun. So come with me and Katarzyna to Campinos National Forest.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Poland Daily. We've gone out into the middle of the forest, actually, now. Katarzyna and I are going to talk to you about a very significant place. This is the cemetery of Palmyra. At the very beginning of the war, this was a scene of unspeakable crimes, is the only thing that we can say, purposely hidden away in the forest so that no one would see what was taking place here, and even less know about it. This is an especially important place in Warsaw history and the park history.
Yes, it is. And when we are talking about national park, when you say that we are in national park, everybody thinks at the beginning that nature, this is the most important. But all national parks in Poland, they have also historical part. We are so close to capital city, you may imagine that many events from Second World War took place here. Mm-hmm. And we are in the biggest cemetery Sometimes we call that Polish Katyń, because this is the biggest place where 2,115 people are buried. So they've been killed in 21 different places, not exactly here, but this place was chosen to commemorate their death and their suffer. It was like a meadow inside of the forest, so they may be here. They may rest here in a peace. At the end of the cemetery, there are 3 crosses.
And behind us.
Yes, we may see them behind us. And this is a big symbol. It's like Jesus and please help me with the word.
The other people that
2 other people who were crossed with him.
The thieves.
And the thieves. And when you look at the arms of the cross, normally the length of the arms are the same. Vertically, arms are longer. So it's like a human being who's crossed. So this is a symbol of the people who died here.
It's related to Christ's suffering, obviously.
And then the Nazis, they chosen different places hidden in the forest to hide their crime.
Exactly.
And now when we are coming to Palmyra, it's rather close. It seems to be close, but when we are 8 years in the past, it means that it was not that easy accessible. And people from different places, from Warsaw, from different jails, were taken, and they've been thinking that they are going to the camps, work camps. But when cars started to turn into the forest, they realized that something wrong is going on. So they started to throw out small things which could help other people to track them.
Track them.
Yes, but also foresters and local people, they noticed that something happens, and they marked places where they've been killed with small crosses on the trees, or they put like a bullet, this part of the case of the bullet into the trees. So they marked that in that way, and they've been choosing places, special places. For example, they've been planting trees, so like tree nursery, so to hide. Or they've been digging big holes, like after bomb explosion, so to hide what they did. After war, the Polish Red Cross, they started to exhumate the bodies.
To take the bodies out, exhume them.
Yes, this place was chosen to bury the people.
Yeah, yes.
You may also mark that some of the crosses have names and some have no names. During exhumation, they tried to find out who's who. If somebody had documents or some other stuff which allowed to recognize the name of the person. So thanks to that, we know some
some
names.
of the people are.
Yes.
But a lot of them we don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. Here's Antoni. Here, come here. I have a friend called Mankowski, and there's Antoni Mankowski. But then one next to it, there's no name on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you look
Most
around,
of them are with no name, it seems.
Most of them are known, in fact.
They are?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
If you look around, you will see that here there are not only crosses. There are different religions, people from different religions. There are some Jews which are buried here also. And each year in September we have a big commemoration.
Religious figures?
Yes, comes here and they pray together for the sake of the dead people.
The rabbis and as well as the Catholics together, which is a good point, because people think that a lot of times that the Holocaust or the great murders that took place in the country were only Jewish people, and in fact, there were a huge amount of Polish Catholics, not just Polish Jews, who were also murdered, and that's reflected in this cemetery too. Yeah.
And people who died here and in other places, they could be opposition to the Nazis. So that's why they've been killed.
Well, they took a lot of intellectuals and and people like that, across the board. The interesting thing is that was exactly 80 years ago, almost.
Yes.
Because this is August, and that'll be September.
So,
so there will be a lot of, I suppose, remembrance going on here soon. Yeah. In September.
All that happened between 1939 and 1941. So it was altogether, it was more executions, but in 21 places, different places.
Here in the forest?
Yes.
Yeah, 21 places, of which this is just one location.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we're Poland Daily. We're here. It's a very serious place. It's a place for reflection. And even on, we're blessed to have such a beautiful day to be here and walk amongst the graves of so many, well, just sad, a sad situation. That's all you can say. We'll be back with more, though. Perhaps we'll go and look in the museum, more with Penny, Katarzyna, with Kasia, and myself from Palmyra and from Campinos National Forest on a beautiful day.